Good morning and welcome to Studio Time with Deb. This is the online version of the class. Today we're going to be talking about neckwires, collars, Torqs. It was really interesting. I got a couple requests actually several requests to talk about this. And at first I thought, you just take a wire and bend it till it fits your neck, but that's really not that simple. There's a long history of Torqs. And after that, there's a lot of other information. So we'll be going through that today. So let's talk about Torqs this morning. Not twerks, Torqs. Torq, spelled T-O-R-C, T-O-R-Q, or T-O-R-Q-U-E. They are ancient. They first appeared in 8th century BC, which is kind of amazing. Wikipedia has a really interesting article on this. So the word comes from Latin, torquus, and it means to twist, and it's because you have to twist it to kind of put it on. Torqs have openings in the front, typically. So occasionally they'll be in the back, but the typical Torq has an opening in the front, and a collar has an opening in the back. And other than that, they're pretty much the same. Historically, they're found in all cultures across Europe for centuries. Centuries they've been there. And you've probably seen the ones that look like twisted sheet metal. They are indeed twisted sheet metal. They often have animal heads at the end. Sometimes they'll have stones at the end. You've seen bracelets that are similar to them that are twisted. They're twisted wires, like electrical cables almost. And one of the reasons they use the twisted wire electrical cable is because it torques really well. It twists really well to put on your neck and then goes back to its normal form. The Celts were one of the big ones that used it in Ireland. And so it was a symbol of a person's position in society. And it's the clearest symbol. I mean, you can see that from across the room, right? You know, if you're dealing with just a lowly peasant that has just a little piece of wire, or if you're dealing with somebody who has an embellished gold Torq, and then they're high society and you better treat them well or you're in trouble. So they also believed that Torqs offered protection from evil spirits. And Celtic warriors were known to go into battle wearing only a Torq and carrying a weapon. So they were completely naked other than a Torq and a weapon. These are brave souls. Traditionally, it's made of one piece of metal. It can be sheet, can be wire, can be twisted wire, bundles of wire, all kinds, intertwined wire, all kinds of things, decorated in the front. Ronald Hayes Pearson is the artist in metalsmith in the, I would say, 50s, 60s, who really developed and made popular the forged collars that we see today, the forged collars and neckwires. And a lot of people have made those for a long time, but he did a lot with those. And I'm going to show you some slides of his work and some other people's work as well. So they're often forged, but not always. You can make them out of wire. You can make them out of sheet metal. You can make them out of rectangular wire, just bent around. You can make them out of pretty much anything. Getting them sized properly and getting them to fit properly is really an interesting thing. It's kind of like cuff bracelets in that it's, people, some of you have asked me for a formula. How do I do it? How long are they? Well, that's like asking me how fast to drive your car. There's all kinds of possibilities, and you'll see that in the slides today. What I recommend, remember back a few weeks ago, I talked to you about having a pantry of materials that you can play with. This is one of those times when you really need that. And one of the things that I did not put in your pantry that you need, if you're going to make neckwires, is this. This is aluminum wire, and it's pretty much pure aluminum. And the advantage of pure aluminum wire, and this is big stuff, this is 6 gauge. The advantage of pure aluminum wire is that you can hammer on this almost indefinitely and not work hard in it, or at least not work hard in it enough that you have to anneal it. So you can hammer on it and play with it and do all kinds of things with it. And I'm going to show you where to get that. I'll tell you where to get that. But
Does it twist, Deb?
I'm sorry?
Does it twist?
No, this is just, it's just wire. This is just a bundle of wire. This is how I got, I think I bought.
But can you twist it like a Torq? Can you?
Sure. Sure. You could do anything with it you could do with any other wire. It's just wire. But the advantage is if you want to do the forging, that you don't have to stop and anneal all the time. And so that's the advantage of the aluminum. And it's soft, it's easy to bend, right? You could also use copper. I think this is cheaper than the copper. So I get it from Metalliferous, but I'll show you the page. So I'm going to screen share right now. And what I'm going to do is show you some slides. So this is 8th to 7th century BC. And this would be considered a Torq. You can see how it locks in front. And the locking mechanism was something that was, I don't know, it's considered more special. So you can see the closure there. So you put it on and snap it shut. A lot of these, the first one set I'm going to show you is all historical, really old pieces. This has the twisted wire that's again been twisted, and it's pretty flexible when you do that. This is sheet metal. So if you would imagine like a long teardrop, not teardrop, a long marquee shape pointed on both ends, and then you take the sheet metal and twist it, it turns into this. I can't imagine that being super comfortable, but it was really common. A lot of people wore them. There are a lot of them out there. This one is the hot twisting. Remember you guys, I've taught you hot twisting before, where you just heat up the metal in one little area and you can twist. So this is a hot twisted Torq. This one is sheet metal. This one is wire, and notice the ends are very elaborate. Notice they're also hollow, and that is because if those were solid, they would rest right on your collarbone. That would be painful, but being hollow, it's going to sit pretty nicely. Twisted wire. This is an ancient one that's gold, that's Florentine. I just think this one is stunning. I'd wear that in a heartbeat. So this begins the section on Ronald Hayes Pearson. And he, like I said, he did a lot of neck collars and whatnot that they're really interesting. And I think he kind of developed or refined this part where it goes over your shoulders. This is what makes these things a little bit more wearable. And Sharon in particular asked about that and making them more wearable. And I'm going to address that in just a little bit. Fred Zweig also does a really good job of teaching that, of making these a little bit more wearable so that they cross, where they cross your shoulder, they actually go back down as opposed to just being a flat ring. This is another one of Ronald Hayes Pearson's, and you can see again, see how the back curves down and then goes a little bit around. And that's so that it sits a little bit nicer on the body. Now, again, everybody's body is a little bit different and you need to adjust these. You can make some generalizations about what works and what doesn't, but you have to adjust it to make sure that it's going to fit you properly. As far as sizing goes, I have done ones that are as small that their necks are, take a 14-inch collar, and I've done ones that take an 18-inch collar. So it really depends on the person. This is another one. These are all forged. Several of you told me I go too fast on slides, so I'm going to go a little bit slower. Beautiful work. So one way to make sure that they fit really, really well is to hinge them a little bit. There's no reason not to have, this is basically 3-point hinge. One is a clasp hinge, but 3-point hinge. And then that way it can just kind of rest on your neck how it rests, right? These are all basic forging techniques, nothing fancy, a lot of skill. Notice up here, notice this arch. That's what makes these super wearable. Very simple. Again, notice the arch. Notice the 3-point articulation on this one again. And especially with that really heavy piece, that's going to make it sit very, very nicely. And it's really pretty. As the back. Notice from the hook class, that elegant, elegant hook. Look at that. Forged on the end right here. Comes around, touches. This is just a beautiful, beautifully done. Notice the arch on this one. The tighter they are around your neck, the more that arch needs to be right. If they hang down a little bit, then it can hang up more in the back of the neck. But when they're tight around the neck, they really need to fit properly. And one of the things to notice it's flat this direction. As it makes this transition, it's flat the other direction. And so as this comes around, it changes in plane to be flat so that it's flat on your chest, but then it's flat against the back of your neck here. That's what makes them really comfortable. This is Jane Adam. She does a lot with anodized aluminum and colored aluminum and things like that. This is a really simple neck wire. The neck wire obviously is just a carrier for the pendant. She does a lot like that. So I wanted to show you some of those where the neck wire it's there, but it's incidental. It's incidental to what, to the, I wouldn't call this a pendant, to the rest of the neck piece. I wanted you to look at the connectors she's got going on here. So she has soldered tubing on here, and then because these cannot be soldered on, right here she's got a cold connection going on and then a pin. How it works exactly, well, you can kind of see what's going on back here. This is another one of hers. This is gold and silver. And it's a cable. This is a cable, but notice the cable feeds into the tubing on either side. This is one of hers, and if you study this one, you can figure out how it's connected. Because again, it's cold connected, that she's got the wire coming from one up into the next one, but it's articulated. This is another one. Her roller print textures are really, really amazing too. Notice the hook on this one. And if you look right here, you can see how she has spaced these out. She's got little spacers in here all along.
Deb,
Yeah,
is that made from that bimetal that's gold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. This is gold and diamonds, right? There's a little diamond. Actually, there's a pretty big diamond stuck in every one of these. This is Alma Eicherman. Alma Eicherman taught at Indiana University forever. And she was kind of one of the founding godmothers of contemporary metalsmithing. Helen Shirk studied with her, and you can see a lot of the influence of Alma on Helen's work. This is a neck piece that I thought it really exemplifies what Alma does and kind of thinking out of, or did, and thinking out of the box. And it also will make you think about neck collars and Torqs and whatnot a little bit differently. They don't have to be the traditional right around tight to your neck kind of piece. This is also hers. This one has, this is a regular, or kind of a simple regular neck wire. The neck wire is almost irrelevant, but notice it's got two hooks on it. And so what you can do with this then is to have multiple pieces that hook onto this one that you can wear. This is Fred. So Fred teaches classes in doing the forged neck collars. And he does a lot of different ones. This one has kind of a V, and you can take the pendant and slip them off and on the collars so that you can wear them, you know, wear different pieces on them. This is also one of Fred's. This is Alexander Calder. And Calder didn't do a lot of neck pieces, but he, as far as collars and Torqs and that kind of thing. This is one. It does articulate on the shoulders. It does go down the back pretty much like it looks on the front. This is another Calder piece. Remember that Calder never soldered. He didn't have a torch. He just did cold connections, wrapped things, coiled things, hammered on things. He didn't anneal either. This is a Calder piece. And this is a Calder piece with matching earrings. This one, doesn't this look a lot like that very first slide that I showed you from 8th century BC? A lot. This is a Calder piece. I think it would be so fun to put this one on. Can't you imagine you put that over your head and it just pops in? This is a nice one, but when you see it on the right and you think, oh, that's not bad to wear, look at it on the left. Look how big it really is.
Deb, did somebody really wear his pieces?
So Peggy Guggenheim was a big patron of his, and she and her friends used to love wearing his pieces. They would wear them at parties. They would, you know, try to out Calder each other. They would, oh yeah, absolutely. It was kind of the in thing to do. If he didn't have Peggy Guggenheim, I think he would have been on the street corner with the rest of the basic jewelers. But but having Peggy Guggenheim as a patron really made a big difference in his world. And not that he wasn't a gifted artist and gifted thinker and extremely imaginative, because he definitely was. But yes, they did wear them, Shelley. They wore them at parties. They had, there's pictures, you can find pictures of Peggy Guggenheim wearing his stuff, and
When
other
was the
people too.
years? What years or year
Hmm.
that time?
I
20s?
would say 50s, 60s,
Oh, okay. Thanks, Deb.
could be 40s. It's another Calder piece. Now that's going to be really, really, really work hard. And can you imagine putting that on? I think that would be so fun to wear. So fun. It'd be springy. I love this piece. Arleen Fish. So these are not the best slides. They're the ones I could snag on the internet. Arleen has done, you know, she's known for her fiber technique and her weaving and that kind of stuff. But she's done a lot of collars, and she started out, she went to school at Syracuse in New York and studied fashion design first. And so a lot of her work has a lot to do with fashion more than it does with jewelry, or maybe the crossover between fashion and jewelry is a more accurate way to say it. And so this is another one. So this one goes over, you can see where it goes over the shoulders, down the back, and then the gold square is in the front. This is a crocheted collar. Another crocheted collar. This is corrugation with, I can't tell if that's woven or not, probably. And pleated. So now we're going to get into some of the more commercial ones that are out there that you see. So this is one, these are ones that are I found for sale or for whatever all over the place. This one is textured. This is a very simple, this is like, looks like it to me like it's a round wire. It could be a slightly flattened wire. I'm not sure. Very simple. This would be work hardened, so you would just kind of twist it and put it on.
Deb, I'd like you to show me how these actually get around your neck. Twist it like a jump ring and then snap it around your neck.
So yeah, they're super work hardened. And so when you twist them, they twist, you put them on, slip them on, and then they just twist, they pop back into shape. The key is to having them super work hardened so that they'll do that. Yeah, I've got one of Fred's here, and I'll show you in a minute how it does that. But even ones like this, so on this one, the wire is thin enough that you can twist this thing to open it just fine. You kind of twist it sideways, pop it on, and it'll just go right back to where it was. If you solder on it at all, if you do anything like that, then it's going to anneal it. And once it's annealed, it's not going to pop back into shape very well. So you have to plan these things so that they're going to be work hardened at the end. That's why a lot of them have replaceable pendants, or like this one could have easily have different pendants hang from the bottom piece there, or a little pearl hang from the top piece. But it's got to be work hardened. They've got to be springy. Otherwise they're not going to work.
Is that one soldered?
Probably. It could be soldered and then opened and, you know, bent and whatnot, or twisted afterwards. So what you could do is to shape this, shape this, shape this. solder those on, and then take this wire while it's straight and twist it back and forth, back and forth and back and forth. You know how we do ear wires, twisting them back and forth? And if you do that for a little bit, you're gonna work hard in that wire. One thing I want you to note, look at this. See how this sticks up in the air? This is not good. Right here, this should have been bent. If this was bent down, then it would lay much nicer. This is gonna be uncomfortable and it's gonna catch. And notice here, there's a gap also. It touches here and it touches here, but not through here. And if it was shaped a little bit better, if it was curved a little bit more right there, this whole thing would lay a little bit nicer. And that again is very individual. That's not gonna fit every person like that. So you have to make them fit the person. This is a forged one, commercial. This one I think is just a simple round wire. It might be very lightly forged down here on the bottom. But you can see where these commercial ones are very reminiscent of the Ronald Hayes Pearson ones, and even back to some of the Calder ones, and even back to some of the really ancient ones I showed you. Love this one.
Deb,
Yeah.
you think that last one was a piece of sheet that they cut, like sort of, is that all one piece, or do you think that they sliced up, you know?
Yeah, I think it is. So I think it starts back here as one piece. I think it gets sliced up and then moved around and sliced up and moved around, but I think there's some additional pieces in here. So I think it's these two pieces that come and they intertwine with extra added on stuff.
Yeah, cool, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's really nice. I'd love to see somebody wearing that one. This is one that a student made years ago, Marilyn Bow up at Saddleback. And I wanted to show it to you because this is the closure right here, and it articulates right here. And it's just wire. It's very simple. It's a very simple piece. But look at the balance and look how it hangs. And it works really well. She loved it. She wore it a lot. So this one opens in front, and I don't have a picture of the back of it, but basically the wires come around and meet. But again, they have to be work hardened.
So Deb,
Yeah.
when those things are work hardened, don't you break it eventually from putting it on and off?
No. So our metal is so soft, the silver and even gold, for the most part, is it's soft enough that all we're doing is once it's work hardened, we're not really pushing it much to get it off and on anymore. What we're doing is just bending it, you know, basically enough to open it. If I went at something, say 14 karat gold, if I super work harden it, I can probably still take that super work hardened thing and bend it back and forth a little bit, as long as I'm not elongating the crystalline structure even more each time I do it. And usually I'm not. But if I would go in with a hammer or something and do it, then I could get to the point where I do crack it and break it. But I'd have to really, really work it hard, especially with silver. Silver is going to be really hard to do that too. You can do it with a hammer or a mill. To do it by bending it back and forth, I don't know. That's going to be really, that's going to take forever. This one, there's a collar under there somewhere. I thought it was a really cool piece the way it lays. This one too. And this one too. Notice the spacers, all the little spacers in here separating all of these pieces. This is where I get the aluminum wire I was telling you about. It's metalliferous, and they sell it in 1 pound coils. And if you're going to do forging on it, I would recommend the 6 gauge. if you're just going to bend it around 8, 10, 12, 14, whatever. This is cool stuff to play with. And it's part of what I would recommend that you have in your store of playing with pile. So Metalliferous has a moderately dreadful website. You can order on it, but it's a little hard. You can call them. They're nice folks. They're good folks. Their website's a little difficult to use. Oh, and that is the end of the slides. So I wanted to show you these things real quick. This is Fred Zweig's collar that he makes. And this is one that he made for me. And you can see on here, see how it's raised up in this area? The other thing that Fred does to make it real wearable is that he turns the end of this right here so that when you put it on and take it off, it doesn't jab into your neck. It's it's gentle, it's softened. And the way he has done that is that he made this tool. This is just a piece of Delrin that has 2 little slots in it. And basically what you do is to put your wire in there and then bend. And that makes that little bend there. The other way you can do that is with a pair of pliers like this one. It has the half round on one side and the flat on the other side. So this side is flat and this side is rounded. And so you can grab the end of the wire with that and do it. The other way you can do it is with this tool. And this is one, Diane's son made this. You can do a version of it also just with nails and a board. But this has different spacing. If I pull these out, you can see the spacing here is large and here it's really tiny. They're right next to each other. So what you do is that you find the spacing for the wire that you have. Then I can put my wire in there and then I can pry against these and bend against it to bend how I want the piece to bend. Okay. So any of these tools are great for bending the ends of that, but the ends, it does make a difference if those ends are curved a little bit like that. It just makes it a little bit soft. That's why in the ancient days too, they put sometimes animal heads or beads or something on the end of those to make them a little bit more wearable. As far as this arch goes, this arch right here, that is really dependent on different people and how it sits on their neck. What I would do is to make a neck collar, I would make it flat. So if this whole thing is flat first, this thing is flat. And when you put it on, this is down here is on your chest. Then here, wherever it starts sticking up is where you're going to take it and try to bend it down. You're going to bend it so that it's going to conform to where it crosses your shoulder. And that depends partly on where you want it to sit on your chest, you know, how far down it's going to be, whether it's a tight collar or a loose collar or what. It also depends on how the person is built, how tight their shoulders are, how loose they are, how whatever. So you're going to have to fit this to each individual person. And then notice that this comes down again. So it's just a matter of playing with it, which is why I really like the aluminum wire, because you can sit there and play with that. And then once you get a form, once you get it figured out and you get that form, then you're good to go, at least for yourself. You've got it to where you're always going to have pretty much the same shape that fits you nicely, unless you change how far down it goes or something like that. But even so, over the shoulder, it's going to fit you pretty much the same. Okay, do I have any questions on these?
So how thick was the wire before being forged?
I believe this one was, it's either 6 gauge or 8 gauge. A lot of them are 6. Some of them, I mean, you could do anything. You could go as thick as 2 or 4 if you want. Some of those from Ronald Hayes Pearson, I'm sure were either 0 or 2. So it kind of depends on how wide you want the piece when you're done. And you know, kind of what you want it to look like. This one is not particularly wide in the front here. I know that Fred usually uses 6, but sometimes uses 8.
And Deb, would you always start the forming foraging down there at the where it hangs in the front and then work your way up to the back of the neck?
Yes, I would. Yeah, because I can't get the back in the right place until I'm sure the front's in the right place, right?
So the neck forming busts that we have rusting in the corner are out the window?
I've never loved them. And if it fits the neck forming bust, it won't fit me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Deb, I have a question. It's Claudia.
Hi, Claudia.
The beginning of the slideshow where it had the sheet metal that was twisted, coiled to make a collar.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So that is honestly, what you need to do, Claudia, is to get a piece of ribbon and put one end in the vise and twist the other end and watch what it does. That is exactly what it's going to do. It is just a strip of metal. Now, a lot of times what they did was to make them really wide in the middle, and then they tapered them down as they went. How long do they need to be? I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't think you lose a lot of width or a lot of length when you twist them up like that. So probably I would start with something that's maybe 24 inches, which seems like that would be, if anything, excessive, and you could cut some off. And I would try it in thin sheet metal and then go to something thicker. But basically it's just twisted. Now, in order to get an even twist on something like that, what you have to do is to put one end in a vise, hold on to the other end, and you have to pull for all you're worth as you're twisting. Because if you don't pull as you're twisting, then it's going to twist unevenly, right?
And it has to be annealed, right?
I would try doing it not annealed. Remember, we want this work hardened when we're done.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would try not annealing.
Okay, when you say thin, how thin?
Well, so I would, for starters, just to try out the idea. So here's the deal, guys. You know, when I'm doing something like this and I'm trying to figure something out, and this is really what I want these classes to be more about, is I want to teach you how to figure this out. So when I'm figuring something like this out, I would start with something, maybe 24, 26 gauge, something like that. It's whatever I have around in the studio. If all I have around, if I don't have any thin sheet metal, either copper or aluminum or something, you know, red brass or something I can throw away that's cheap, then what I would do is to grab some heavy duty aluminum foil, like from the oven, like the oven foil. And I would take it and take a length of about 24 inches of it and then fold it up multiple times and tape the edges of it and twist it and see what it'll do. It's not going to behave exactly the same as other metal, but it's as real metal, but it will behave a lot like it, and it's going to give you an idea of what's going to happen so that you can figure out what your next step should be. I would say ultimately making those, you don't want the edges to be sharp, so I would say 24 to 20 gauge ultimately if you're going to make one in gold, for instance. Then you probably just need a 24-inch piece of, 20 gauge gold, and that would work fine. All right. Any other questions?
Would you mind putting your piece on and off?
Sure. Here. Like this. I open mine up and slip it on.
Oh, that looks really good. That looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
And look how it lays on me. I mean, look at this.
Yeah,
It
you
does,
can tell.
I don't know if I can go here. Hang on. Can you see?
Yes. Yeah, that looks spectacular.
I can't even feel it when it's on. It's just beautiful. It just lays beautifully. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Fred does teach classes in this. And it's not, I mean, it's an ancient technique. It's not, you know, but he has developed a way of teaching it that's really phenomenal. He's very, very good. I don't know if he's going to be doing online classes. One thing I did figure out yesterday is that I may have guest artists come in and teach, and I will facilitate how to do this, like I'm an expert at this, but I will facilitate how to get the class together and organize how it all works. So I may be doing some of those, because I would love to have Fred do this for somebody, for some of you. It's a really nice class. It's a good lesson. And it's not that horribly difficult to do, but there are tricks to the trade for sure.
I took Fred's class on these collars, and it was not something I wanted to do because personally I have a pretty significant deformity in my shoulders. And I thought there's no way that I'm going to fit this. And if I do, it's going to look wonky. I have a shoulder that's an inch higher than the other one. They work perfectly. I was amazed at how well it fit, and I did not have to do an adjustment on it whatsoever. So if anybody has those concerns, it's definitely a good collar to try for fit.
Can I add to that, Kathy, because I agree with you. I took that class thinking, you know, is it ever going to deal with the bump and the fact that I've got a big broken collarbone thing sticking up? And it does. And I will tell you that I wear that neck collar with lots of different pendants, as most of you know. It's like, it's just so nice. I can make the pendants and just hang them on that collar. I love it. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I have a broken collarbone from back in horse days. And it's the same thing. A lot of neck collars and stuff don't feel good, but when Fred does them, he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to fit it, and he knows how to make it work. And it's just really good. So I think some of it's playing around with it, some of it's knowing some of the tricks, but playing around with it a lot and figuring out, you know, trying it on and off and on and off, so that you know where it lays, where it needs to turn, how it needs to fit. And Fred's really, really good at that. Okay, thank you for joining me today. For this session of Studio Time with Deb, online version, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.